Howdy, Texans. Welcome to Rappin with Rev Rad. What is that, you say? Well, this is our first program, so we're going to find out. It's a new program here on 104.9 Encore Radio. My name is Ted Davis. I am a resident of Kerrville. Tim Radke is Rev Rad. He is the lead pastor at Hosanna Lutheran Church here in Kerrville. They're located on Camp Meeting Road, just south of town on 16. They have services at 8:30 in the morning and 11 in the morning on Sunday. I am a member of that church. And Rev Rad, this is our first show, so let's get this thing rolling.
Sounds good. Thanks for letting me be a part of the show.
You're a new resident of the Hill Country. You took a call at our church in September. Your thoughts on being I've claimed that I am now a Kerrvillian. You can be a Kerrvert or a Kerrvite. I've chosen the Villian part. What's it like living in the Hill Country?
Well, I've also chosen Kerrvillian myself, but I absolutely love living in the Hill Country. It's a great place for many reasons. Great people, great citizens as part of the community, great scenery. I'm a guy who likes to be outdoors, so this is one of God's best places to be outdoors, and so I love that. Great church family. I can really say honestly that the church is a family. They love one another like a family, take care of one another with a family, and sometimes are the only family there for people whose family isn't there for them, if that makes any sense. And so all around, we've just found it to be a great community. My wife and I live here. My daughter still lives in the Dallas area, McKinney, so she's about to graduate college. So we are empty nesters and enjoying it.
Your wife is Leanne. I want to give her a shout out.
Correct,
So,
correct.
Leanne, welcome to the Hill Country, too.
Yes, she loves
before
it.
we get into the meat of the program, give us your background.
Sure. I've been a pastor almost 24 years. This summer will be 24 years. The first congregation I served was in Lubbock, Texas, West Texas. I served there about 10 and a half years. Then I served a congregation in McKinney, Texas, in the Dallas area, north of Dallas, for almost 13 years, and then have just come to serve this congregation. And if the Lord pleases him, I hope to finish out my ministry here in Kerrville.
We're glad to have Pastor Rad here because I was on the call committee.
Yes.
So we went through a lot of candidates. I think at one point we had 18 candidates that we were looking at. We issued one call to you in August. You accepted, and September 1, you became a Kerrvillian. So we're thrilled that you're here.
Yes. glad to
You're
be.
also a military chaplain, and that's what we want to talk about today. How did you become a military chaplain?
Sure. So actually, between my junior and senior year in high school, I went to boot camp. So I enlisted in the Army as a junior, had to have the parental consent and all of that. Went to boot camp at Fort Sill in Lawton, Oklahoma. Came back for my senior year in high school, graduated, then went to what they call your job-specific training. I did that at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and then served basically a 6-year reserves contract. And then when that finished is actually when I left to go begin my seminary journey. I had graduated from University of North Texas in
Go Mean
96.
Green, by the way. Go
yeah,
Mean Green.
Go Mean Green. And so after that, I was out of the military for most of my ministry, and then in 2018, I got a random call from a recruiter looking for chaplains in the military, saying that they were desperately in need of them. I assured the recruiter that I was too old at the time. I think I was 44 at the time, and I knew the age out point was 38. And he's like, "No, we got waivers." So I was like, "All right, well, let me check with my wife and my congregation and see if they're okay with it." And all were on board, and so I got commissioned May 19th, my sister's birthday, of 2019, and have since then been serving as an Army Reserve chaplain. And so I've served a military police battalion in Grand Prairie. I served a chemical battalion in Little Rock, and now serve a military intelligence battalion out of San Antonio.
Did you feel that this was a second calling for you in a way?
I did, when that call came around to even think about it, what I realized is, there are many things I don't enjoy about the Army, but the things that I enjoyed the most about the Army was just fellow soldiers. And I realized once I got back in how much I missed just hanging out with soldiers and talking to them and listening to them and trying my best now as a chaplain to help them and walk with them through various things. And a lot of things you do as a chaplain is walking with them, not necessarily all spiritual. Sometimes it's really just being an ear for them to talk to somebody. They might not even be religious themselves, but sometimes when life hits them hard, they want somebody to talk to that they know cares about them. And so the Army offers that opportunity through the chaplain, because everything you say to the chaplain is 100% confidential. So unlike a pastor, there's certain things that you have to break confidentiality around, but in the military, everything's sealed under confidentiality when it's a session like that.
Talking with Pastor Tim Radke of Hosanna Lutheran Church. We're rapping with Rev Rad, and we'll be doing it every or every Wednesday at this time. And so I don't know if you can answer this, but is there any one particular challenge facing military personnel, or is it a whole bunch of things?
I would say there's probably a number of challenges facing the military, but I think there's probably some reoccurring themes that maybe surface more than some of the other things. I think there's a challenge of soldiers coming in or coming into the Army, entering the Army, that have a lack of any spiritual foundation, have a lack of a physical fitness foundation, have a lack of understanding community in the flesh versus digital. And so those three things really present some problems as young recruits come in and enter into a boot camp type scenario, where you don't have your phone except for on Sundays for a half hour, and that's it. And that can be very traumatic to all ages nowadays.
For all of us,
but for sure for the younger ones.
And in boot camp, they're trying to break you down a little bit.
Yeah, right. And the military's even had to try to fix this of almost like developing this pre-boot camp where they help you to get a higher score on your ASVAB, which is like a competency test that you take when you enter in, and also trying to increase your fitness so that you can come up to the level of meeting the military standards before you even then go into actual boot camp. And that's been on a pilot program, and it's had some success with trying to help onboard in a better way so that there's more success for those coming in.
I heard you say that without any sort of religious grounding,
right,
when things go bad for them, for the soldiers, there's nothing to back them up, to boost them up.
Yeah. I mean, this is a big phenomenon. Is, what shocked me the most, when I came back in and answered that call in 2019, I was already a part of an organization called 22 Kill, which is a veteran organization to try to minimize suicide rates. And at that point, the stat was 22 veterans kill themselves every day. And so when I was coming in, I thought, oh, man, I would love to be God's agent in helping to curb the suicide rate, because it's just so tragic on so many levels. And then when I stepped in, sure, there are those that have PTSD, that have been in combat, that do take their lives. But the largest percentage of those who take their life in the Army is 18 to 22-year-olds that have never been deployed.
And with so much to live for.
Yeah. And that just really blew my mind, because it wasn't anything that I thought it was going to be when I was coming in. I thought, it's going to be hardened war veterans who have trauma or traumatic brain injuries or some of these sorts of things. And while that's present, the greatest majority is stunning. It's 18 to 22, never been deployed.
Why is that, you think? I mean, we've talked about it, lack of religious grounding, but there's got to be other things involved.
Yeah, I have there's a few things that I think, I've not certainly done a whole quantitative analysis of the topic, but my gut tells me that, society has really moved in the direction of trying to avoid hard things, of trying to remove any adversity that one might have in their life. I think parenting has played a role. I think, There was a time when you got yourself into trouble and you had to get yourself out of trouble at school. You had to deal with the consequences of your action. Now there's so much parental involvement that a kid may be benched for a good reason on a sports team, but then the parents throw a fit at the school and all of a sudden the kid's back in, and the kid's not had to work himself through any of these adversities or things that don't go well. And sometimes you learn, right? Politics plays a role in life. Sometimes somebody gets a position not because they're better, but because of some other influence. And if you don't ever have to navigate that yourself, well, then you never develop the tools for setbacks, for adversity, for challenges. And sometimes you have to learn, hey, I've given it everything I've got and it didn't turn out the way that I hoped. But the military now has tried to develop a whole thing called mental resiliency training, because they realize people don't have this foundation, whether spiritual, educational, parental, or whatever the foundation is that you want to talk about, that helps them to see, hey, there's dark days, but there's light, there's hope. And so they have this loss of any sense of hopefulness. Like I said, because they haven't stayed in the dark long enough to know that light comes after the dark.
Yeah.
And so it presents this real catastrophic kind of thinking for them is, this goes wrong, girlfriend breaks up, finances hit me, I might as well just end it all. There's no way out.
That's amazing, because tomorrow, I found tomorrow is always going to be a better day.
Yeah.
You're sad today, but you'll come out of this.
Yeah, or just a kind of a holistic thinking, right? Is there's bad days, there's good days.
Yeah.
There's darker seasons in life, like winter, and then there's seasons full of life, like spring, but it's not even in the psychology of so many of the young ones who aren't, what's the best way to say this? Haven't been
scarred, actually.
Yeah, haven't been scarred and have had their scars prevented from even happening or removed, like laser scar removal by parental involvement. And it's a real challenge. Like, where I see a big difference are those soldiers who come into the Army, 18 to 22, who have been in something like ROTC.
Yeah.
Right? They're coming in, they realize there's a mission, they realize things don't always go well, they've been through hard things, they've made it through hard things. They're here today to tell you that those hard times don't last all the time, And so they're very different than those who just kind of come right from high school or drop out of college or maybe even finish college and come in because it's a better job prospect for them. That there's just a great demarcation in those who have done hard things, had to suffer consequences in life, worked for a boss that was a jerk.
Oh, I've done that.
Yeah. I mean, and it's like, you don't just quit. The minute you don't like somebody, you don't just quit, but that's kind of all that they know to do. Is just quit. Why? Because you're not supposed to suffer. You're not supposed to have adversity. You're not supposed to have somebody talk to you like this. And it's like, but that's just not the real world.
I know. Tom Petty is one of my favorite music artists, and he has a song. It's a song called Walls. And he summed up life in 16 words. Some days are diamonds. Some days are rocks. Some doors are open. Some roads are blocked. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, do you have good days? Bad days. Some days it's smooth sailing. Some days you got a roadblock in front of you. And I always found, people ask me, I've been in broadcasting 53 years. So I have a lot of young people say to me, okay, how do I get into broadcasting? Mm-hmm. First of all, I tell them it's a crazy business and you should think again, but right. I'm 53 years in, so I'm hopeless. I got to keep going. But the thing I tell them is you better get used to rejection.
Yeah.
Because you are going to be told no more than yes. I'm 53 years in. I've had a really good career. I've been rejected more than I've been accepted.
Yeah.
And you got to keep plowing through.
Sure. And that's I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's just the concept of rejection alone.
Yeah.
How do you deal with rejection? And it seems like it's, everybody knows that. And I'm telling you, watching the mass of those coming in, they do not know that. They do not know how to deal with rejection or to deal with somebody who doesn't puff you up as an individual and swell your pride, and your ego. You go to boot camp and guess what? They don't care. Their job's to take you from being a citizen to a soldier that embodies a warrior ethos, and they expect to see something different. You're going to be something different at the end. Right. And And some of them might not know when they enter what's happening. And the process is to break you down, to let you know your community. Well, here, it's not on your phone. It's the soldiers in green that you're looking at around the table. You're sitting in the foxhole with, you're eating your MRE with.
Yeah.
That's your community, you know. And when you're deployed, it's the only community you have.
Yep. Timothy Radke, Rappin with Rev Rad here on Encore Radio 104.9. We'll be doing this again next Wednesday at this time. What's the most rewarding part about being a military chaplain?
I think the most rewarding part of military chaplaincy is just when you have the time and the space to develop a rapport with soldiers. You know, most of the problems any soldier has today isn't a problem that somebody coming into the Army in the 70s didn't have. You know, those problems usually stay pretty much the same. The difference is the soldiers today coming in come from a different kind of family of origin than what those came from before. Largely, that's a generalization. Of course, there's exceptions on both sides of that spectrum.
A lot of broken households?
Yeah, a lot of broken households, a lot of potentially criminal pasts.
Father absent sometimes?
Yeah, absent fathers, divorced families, you know, that sort of thing. And I can give you one example. If I compare my time in the 90s to the 2020s, when you had a chapel service in the 90s, it was packed. Your company commander was there, your first sergeant was there, first line leaders were there, soldiers were there from higher ranked to lower ranked, and everybody enjoyed singing hymns together, studying God's word together, and doing all that. Today, I think I've been in one chapel service where there was even a first sergeant from the unit as a participator, and more likely than not, it's less than 5 soldiers in a chapel service.
Wow.
I mean, and before it was 40, 50, 60. Probably 90% of the formation was in a chapel service.
Yeah.
And now it might be 2%, 3% of the formation is in a chapel service.
Yeah. Huh.
So
if there's a soldier out there who is dealing with problems, what do they do?
Well, one distinction you have to make is whether they're on active duty or they're a reservist. If they're on active duty, there's a lot of places that they can go to for help. They can go to their chaplain. They can go outside of their chain of command and go to a chaplain in the Family Life Center to seek counseling and talk. They can go to behavioral health, which is more like, as we would think of it on the outside, is like psychotherapeutic or counselors and that kind of help and assistance, diagnosis, treatment, prognosis, all that kind of jazz. But for those who are in the reserves, it's a little bit more of a challenge because as a chaplain in the reserves, I can have companies, you know, in 3 other states plus Texas. And so a lot of your referrals in the reserves is here's the 800 number to call, the family life crisis number, or, you know, here's this, or I can help you find a counselor in your area that maybe works with your insurance if you have it, which a lot of these younger ones don't. They don't have that health insurance, so it would just be a cost to them, so that leads them to not want to do it.
Right.
You send them to a VA, it might be like, hey, that's great, we'll see you in 5 months. Well, that's just too far out, you know. So in the past, I've always worked, since I've been a congregational pastor and a chaplain, I've always used the congregation where I served as benevolence for those exceptional needs where a soldier needs therapy but doesn't have insurance and can't get in the VA, that we say, hey, we'll pay for 3 sessions for you to go talk to somebody. And
so
then
if somebody's listening, who could they call the church? Could they call Hosanna? And
yeah, they can. Hosanna doesn't necessarily have that same discretionary fund that I had previously in my last congregation for this kind of thing, though I think our congregation would support that. Yeah. So if the need arose, I think, we can get somebody help, you know, professional help, because, you know, a chaplain's not a licensed professional counselor, you know, so he can provide some help and some direction and can walk with a person through the counseling even. But I would most certainly be able to try to get somebody connected, especially if you're in this area with Fort Sam Houston and some of the resources around here. They're not far. Yeah. You know, in Dallas, you didn't have a base right around where you could say, hey, I might make a call to a chaplain on base who's going to get you in with the behavioral health or whatever.
I have a question for Rev Rad. This is my question.
Sure.
If you notice, the world seems to be in chaos.
Yeah, it does seem to be a bit in chaos.
And so my question is, and I've been pondering this a long time, is it more in chaos, or is it just that we have more access to the news? Because if you read the Bible, hasn't the world always been in chaos?
Yeah. That's a great point and great question is, when I think about soldiers coming in with no scriptural or spiritual foundation, they miss out on really the meta-narrative of life. You know, the scriptures include betrayal, grief, loss, defeat, victory, reconciliation,
war,
recovery, war, peace, right? All of these things are covered in the scriptures. And furthermore, at the heart of the scriptures is the cross, Christ crucified, which shows us apparent defeat, Easter, immediate victory over sin, death, and the devil, and then a promised hope for a future, you know? And so for the Christian, whether soldier or citizen, no matter how bad life gets, you know the big story. And the big story is not everything gets fixed in this world, but there's a better world that's going to come, and Christ is ushering it in. And for those who are in Christ, they get to be participators and live eternally in this new world, you know? And so you always have this sense that maybe it gets better here, but maybe this part of my life won't get better here. But I know it'll be healed 100% at some point. You know, and so I can keep my chin up. I can be optimistic, and I can realize, hey, sometimes God intervenes in unique ways, and things are fixed here also. You know, all glory to Him when those things happen.
Even for Christians, sometimes it is hard to be optimistic these days. You know,
sure.
Look around, but I think back to the Civil War was chaotic. I mean, that was as chaotic as you get. And I've always maintained that too much information is not a good thing for us. I know we're addicted to these phones, and it's not going to go away. And we have more access to information than anybody in the history of mankind, and yet it's making us unhappy in so many ways. I always wonder, could we have won World War II if we had social media?
Yeah.
Imagine D-Day being televised live. We'd have given up in 30 minutes.
Yeah, and you know what? The scary thing for me as a currently serving soldier is most of the projections are the next war will be very much fought like World War II was, large-scale ground operations versus insurgency like we had in the Middle East.
Right.
COIN, as they called it, counterinsurgency training. Now they consider it more like that, and all the technologies could be rendered neuter by other technologies. So now it's like, does the guy in a tank know how to fire without GPS working?
Yeah.
Does a soldier know how to get from point A to point B with a map, not with some sort of electronic device?
We just kind of saw that in Venezuela, where we just blacked out everything.
Yeah. And to your point, too, with the social media and information, I think that plays a huge part. It increases anxiety. It creates factions and division. And I think there is a point when an individual has to make a decision that I need to step away from these things. The result of these things are leading me to change my personality and be a different kind of person, you know. And this happened to me probably, 15 years ago. I used to just watch Fox News all the time. And then I found out, I was like, why am I all of a sudden becoming argumentative? That's not my personality. And I just realized it wasn't healthy. And it doesn't matter what side of the coin you're on, blue or red. Too much of any of it's not going to be healthy. And if you realize it's changing your interpersonal relationships, it's not good. You need to put a limit on it.
Yeah.
And one of my big reasons for coming to Kerrville was to find margin in my life again. To not fall prey to chasing the busy idol of our time. That we have this big thing. Stanford put out some research that said most people brag, like 90% of the people brag in their Christmas cards and Christmas letters about how busy they are, because they equate busy with significance and successful.
Yeah.
And I think it's the biggest lie in the world. I wanted margin to see my wife, to go do things that God's enabled me to do, like go and exercise in a beautiful area, see God's creation, meet people along the way, and not make my whole identity about what I do, how I think, or any of those things, but enjoy the things God's given me, creation, family, friends, you don't have any time to enjoy it, what good is it? You don't see it as a gift anymore.
You lived in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I lived
Yeah.
there for 20 years, but it's so big now that you come here and it's a slower pace, although we do have a rush hour. It's about 10 till 5 until about 5:20.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know if you've noticed, after church on Sunday, very busy.
Yeah.
Don't go to HEB right after church.
No.
You put your life in your own
You got to
hands.
pick your restaurants carefully, too.
So 8:30 and 11 at Hosanna Lutheran. I'm a member. We'd love to have you there. And
Yes,
so
definitely.
just come on in as a visitor. We're a very friendly church. We'll welcome anybody to come in. And if you're looking for a place to worship, join Rev Rad at Hosanna Lutheran. I'm Ted Davis, and I just want to say that I'm going to be doing another show here on Encore 104.9. It will start on February 12th at 5 p.m. in the afternoon, and it's called Talkin' Texas Tunes. And I love
Sounds
Texas music. Texas music is an animal unto itself, and it's a state of mind. And we're going to have a show for an hour, and there's going to be a deep dive into all things Texas music, from Willie to ZZ Top. We're going to rock it. We're going to twang it. And it's going to be fun. And we're going to do it on February 12th, first show, 5 o'clock. And as part of that, I'd like to go out with a song by a fellow Kerrvillian, Robert Earl Keen, one of the great Texas musicians. And he has a gospel song on an album called Ready for Confetti. It's called The Soul of Man. We're going to close with that. And then we'll be back next Wednesday, 3:30, right here at 104.9. Reverend Rad, I enjoyed it.
Me too. Thanks for letting me be a part of this.
Well, you're going to be here every week. We're going to wrap with Rev Rad again next week, right here at this time on 104.9. See you next time.